All right, hello and welcome to today's webinar, everyone. Introduction to AEM Magento Learning course. Thank you for joining us, taking your precious time out today for listening to us regarding the Introduction to AEM Magento Learning course, a specially curated training that we are offering you. My name is Faisal Ijaz at Royal Sabre. Being part of e-commerce team, my core responsibilities basically include helping new and existing customers explore as well as enhance their e-commerce domain of business, specifically in Adobe products. With me, I have a co-presenter with me. My co-presenter who will be covering the Adobe Experience Manager part is Atif Fayaz, who is a senior AEM developer involved in consulting new businesses on AEM, headless commerce, and training new resources about how we solve the ever-increasing demand of customers to provide exceptional digital experiences. A bit of housekeeping quickly. Staff will be running a live Q&A at the end of the webinar, so we have enabled our Ask a Question feature. It is on the right-hand side of your screen, so if you have any questions, just pop them in there. We'll be getting to them at the end of the webinar. Quickly, before starting and going ahead, I'll quickly go ahead on what we'll be covering in the next 50 to 60 minutes. So we'll be giving you the introduction to training, where we'll talk about our core focus on the training, the objectives, prerequisites, schedule, and artifacts of the training, as whether it will be going online, how many hours and all. Some training highlights of the actual 5 days of training as what we'll be covering in those 5 days from both Magento and AEM's perspective, and in the end, some key takeaways and Q&A. With this, let's move forward. And before going any further, just let me quickly give you an overview of Royal Sabre from the platform of which we are actually doing this webinar. At Royal Sabre, we are a modernized e-business solution provider specializing in software development, maintenance, support, and program management. With over 1,000 employees around the globe and 90 plus Fortune 500 customers so far in the past 14 years that we had. They come from 3 different continents, and our team hence brings a rich experience in data insight from around the world. We are Adobe partner agency and Magento community insiders with skill certified Adobe resources on board, and we are partner with other major technologies such as IBM, Oracle, and Microsoft as well. Let's put some light on the training itself. So we developed this specially curated training to share with you after creating multiple iterations and working on several projects involving Adobe Experience Manager and Magento. And we thought it will be great to share the learnings in a more composed manner. So you'll find a lot of material on the internet, on the Magento side, the Adobe side, the connector, and the framework that we are going to talk about. But in this course, we'll provide hands-on training on approach to headless commerce using AEM 6.5 and Magento 2.3. We'll be focusing on the core out-of-the-box features of AEM and Magento. Along with GraphQL, we'll go over the overview of the REST APIs as what it has to offer, and we'll probably dive a little deeper into it in the upcoming slides. And the commerce integration framework, which is developed by Adobe, which works as a bridge in headless commerce approach of AEM and Magento. The objectives of training as to why you should be doing it, there are several reasons. But what we are actually looking to achieve from this training is for you to enable to actually set up an on-prem Magento environment from scratch, from architecture to creating custom modules in Magento, and at the same time in parallel, installation and deployment of the AEM 6.5 environment, further to which we'll actually go over creating the customized components in AEM, going through the experience fragments and the digital asset management and storefront pages, templates, and whatnot. So this will be a complete the objective of the training is to basically enable you to go in a live e-commerce environment, which is operating on a headless model, where AEM is a glass and Magento is the sales and the product engine. I'll quickly talk about training prerequisites. Those are not mandatory, but obviously they are good to have. And since once you'll be joining this course, we just want you to have a basic knowledge of PHP programming skills, a bit of knowledge of OOPS and Magento 1 fundamentals. Java, jQuery, and React.js are good to have if you have a knowledge of it. Obviously, HTML, CSS comes along, and obviously a personal computer and a stable internet connection, because this is going to be an online course. Talking about the artifacts and schedule of the training, this is going to be a 5 days hands-on workshop, 5 hours every day. This will be a 4 hours of live instructor-led online session. So both the AEM and Magento trainer will be with you for the 5 hours, with 1 hour of break, 30 minutes each, 2 breaks, where you can actually regroup, have a sip of coffee and stuff. And this will be a group and individual offering. So even if you are the only one trying to opt from your company, we can accommodate you within a group. We have trained for more than about like 400 individuals so far, and 20% of them were actually individuals, and we have accommodated them in the group offerings. So yeah, this is going to be the schedule, and this we are actually flexible on it. If you're coming in group, or if the agenda and topics that you will see in the slides, upcoming slides, we can go ahead and actually curate the agenda for you as well. Before going into the 5-day program as what we'll be doing in it, I just wanted to put up a quick AEM introduction. So the Adobe Experience Manager has been constantly making mark in Gartner's Magic Quadrant for web content management systems for the 9th year in a row. And it is there for a reason. So you create content once and deploy across all customer interactions, including those online and offline, for a consistent experience from one central platform, from one single vendor, which has all the capabilities, the system of intelligence to predict and match customers with the appropriate experience and deliver in real time is fabulous. If you have ever touched upon the AEM framework and the AEM functionalities, you will witness that. And it also helps aggregate customer traits from various touch points and sources to create a unified customer profile that you can target across different channels and probably the Internet of Things. The integration of Adobe Analytics and the target creates a next level of personalization for your customers. So AEM has basically 4 main components. As we know, there's sites, there's forms, assets, and screens. And we'll be focusing in this training more on the sites and assets. Those are the 2 most widely focused components of AEM. Putting across a quick overview of Magento, as we all know, which now needs no introduction, is a market leader which accounts for more than 31% of top 100,000 e-commerce sites. That itself translates to catering to over 31,000 merchants across the world for all type of e-commerce business models we are talking about here. We're talking about brand sites to marketplaces, both in the B2C and B2B sphere. Hence, Adobe Commerce, or Magento, is named as a market leader in the latest 2020 Gartner Magic Quadrant for digital commerce. And with Magento's latest 2.4 release, on which we did a webinar, by the way, a few days back. If you can go to Royal Cyber, or in fact, we'll send it to you, send a link along with this, with the slides of this webinar to you as well. We did a full-blown webinar co-presented by Adobe itself with us, where we actually dived very deeper into what Magento 2.4 has to offer. So Magento 2.4 release, which offers amazing new features in both B2B and B2C capacity, ranging from automated workflows, assisted shopping. There's almost nothing when talking about extreme business cases that Magento doesn't offer, or not likely working on to release in upcoming quarters. Um, a little bit about why AEM Magento is headless. Why should we dive deeper into it? What is the future? What is the room for expansion? And then, so talking about what is headless, we all have an idea that headless is a model where backend is completely decoupled with the front end, where you can use any number of channels suitable for mature businesses having multiple sales channels such as over the counter, mobile, web, independent sales reps, etc. Why the headless approach as AEM and Magento? So headless is becoming more and more popular. Well, due to the flexibility, the customization, more channels accessibility like mobile, social, voice activated maybe devices, and much more. And on top of that, improving the speed and load times greatly helps in headless way. We all have witnessed that. We have benchmarked the performance, uh, where the front end is left to do what it does best, and Magento, in this case, uh, to handle sales and product functions. So when we talk about agility, omni-channel sales experience, and personalization bundled under one roof, to give an amazing customer experience and boost your numbers, AEM and Magento Duo, as you've seen, they've been named in Gartner Magic Quadrant for some reason. This duo stands out as headless commerce for various reasons, which you'll learn during the training, and some of it will be discussing during the webinar slides as well. Moving on, we would now like to put some light on what we'll be actually doing in the 5 days training. So we have put together a plan, and for the Adobe Experience Manager Development's 5-day plan, I'd like to now invite and hand over the control to my co-presenter, Atif Fayaz, who is the Senior Developer of AEM at Royal Cyber. So Atif, over to you.
Thank you very much, Faisal. So good afternoon, first of all, to everyone. I'm going to run more deep inside to what exactly we are going to cover inside AEM in our intensive 5 days training. I'll try to cover each and every aspect that we are actually going to touch during this 5 years plan, during this 5-day plan, and I'll give you a little bit overview of our integration patterns, our design patterns, the tools, technologies that we are going to work on, and how we are going to take them together in this 5-day training plan. So so the first thing first, we are going to start first with setting up our instances of AEM. That's the very first thing we are going to go through on our day one. To set up Adobe Experience Manager instance, there are a couple of different ways that you can actually do that. You can do it through a cloud, or you can do it on premise, or you can have your own jar which you can deploy on your own local instances. And when we start working with AEM, there are a couple of instances that we need to get our AEM boot started. The first thing will be an author instance that we will get started with, and the second thing will be the publisher, and then there will be a dispatcher, and then there will be a load balancer. So we might not be covering a load balancer in our training, but the author, publisher, and dispatcher will be the 3 instances that we will be setting up during our first day of training. Setting these all 3 instances, it is quite simple. We will walk you through how we will start from the plain Java, of course. AEM works on the top of Java. We'll start with the Java and setting up the environments, paths, variables, and then installation of the AEM packages, and setting up the author instances, then publishers, and then finally dispatchers. So once we set up our AEM instance completely, we will walk through completely over architecture and the underlying stack technology of AEM. We will discuss about what AEM runs behind the scenes, what is an architecture of AEM. We will talk quite descriptively about each and every module of AEM. So the image that you can see on your screens is actually the whole architecture of AEM. And after completing first day of training, you should be able to identify underlying technologies in AEM and its complete architecture stack. So in this architecture of AEM, one of the most important component is the OSGI Java container or the OSGI framework, which of course work on the top of Java runtime environment. This container is used for modular development, and it also provides many functionalities in form of models, services, and components. The next layer that we will cover in our day one of the training is the data layer, that is the JCR repository layer. Before JCR repository, or in other words, we can see CRX content repository, we have a servlet engine and app server. These are the same servlets. These are the same app servers or servlet engines which you normally use with any Java web EE application. So those things will be unchanged. We will directly jump towards our CRX content repository. So the JCR content, that is Java content repository, also called as CRX content repository, is in storage layer, and whatever a content an author writes at any time or modify, it always gets stored in this repository. And JCR repository stores data in a form of hierarchical structure. And we will learn more about this in the training, how we can use Java content repository and how whatever we author or as an author, whatever we modify, how does it stores in the JCR repository. On the top of JCR storage layer, we have a web application layer, also called as Apache Sling, which is a REST-based web application framework. It facilitates consuming and exposing the content of your JCR repository and also helps in interacting with our OSGI Java container. Finally, we have AEM application layer, where we find various capabilities like sites, forms, assets, experience fragments, our components, and all the small building blocks which actually make up the AEM instance together. Moving towards the unit 2. So on the second day, we are going to talk, or we are going to start our discussion starting with AEM sites. Whenever we talk about AEM sites, something which comes into our mind is the components creation, the touch UI dialogues, the design dialogues creation, because AEM is all about content. And the the first thing which an AEM developer or authors needs to learn is creating of that content. Whether you are an author or you are a developer, you want a more technical purview of creating or designing or developing those content, or you are an author, you need to learn how the content needs to be authored. There too is for you. So AEM components are used to hold, format, and render the content made available on your web pages. So when authoring pages, the components allow the authors to edit and configure the content. When constructing a commerce site, the components can, for example, collect and render information from a catalog. They can, for example, grab products for you and show you a more beautiful look of, for example, a product carousel, which you normally see on all the modern e-commerce applications. You can create those product carousels. You can have banners, you can have touts, you can have accordions, you can have location components. So we will talk about how we can actually create and understand the basics of component creation on the day one. Second thing that we are going to answer while learning about the component creation is, what exactly do you need the new component to do? Do you need to create your new component from scratch, or you can inherit the basics from an existing component? Will your component require logic to select or manipulate the content? Will your component need CSS formatting? And what security aspects should I take into the consideration while designing or developing my component? These are some of the basic questions which you will be able to answer by the end of day 2 of the training. Second thing we are going to discuss on the day two will be the editable templates. With editable templates, you can actually enable others to make changes to templates, freeing developers from that responsibility. This this reduces the workload of developers to a lot extent. Editable templates makes possible a new role that of a template authors. These authors can create templates dynamically at any time as required. Developers are still needed to set up environment, create client libraries, and create a components to be used. But once these basics are in place, the template authors can create and configure templates without development project. The third thing we will be talking about will be experience fragments on the day two. And experience fragments is nothing but a set of content that when grouped, they forms an experience. And the experience that should make sense on its own. With experience fragments, marketers can, for example, reuse the experience across channels, both owned channels and third-party touch points. They can create variations of an experience for specific use cases. They can keep variations in sync with the use of live copy. They can do a posting, social postings of the experiences on Facebook, on Pinterest, or any out-of-the-box social, any Twitters or any social for any social network where they want where they want to share their experiences. Then we are going to move on the day three of the training. So on day three, we are going to cover our main part of the integration of or we are going to see how headless commerce comes into the practice. We are actually going to integrate. So once by the day two, when we learn about what AEM is, the basics of AEM, the components, the templates, the editable templates, the experience fragments, once we are fine with that, then we will pick up the integration, which will be actually backed by the knowledge that we gain from day one and day two of the training, and we will actually architect the connection between AEM and the Magento instance. We will do the integration using something called as Commerce Integration Framework, also called as CIF as a shortcut. We will understand what is the architecture, which I'm going to show you in the next slide as well. What is the architecture of when we are actually connecting AEM with Magento to play a headless commerce together. And the second thing that we are going to talk about will be the AEM Vinia reference storefront. AEM Vinia reference store is nothing. It's just a production ready storefront for your e-commerce solutions. AEM Vinia reference storefront is an open sourced. It helps you to quickly bootstart your e-commerce application, whether it's a B2B, it's a B2C. You can get a lot of help from AEM Vinia reference store. And we are going to use the AEM Vinia reference storefront as our starting point or as our threshold to see how we can put the e-commerce pieces together in action. The third thing we are going to talk about is going to be the AEM CIF core components. AEM CIF core components are some of the components that actually help you, which are production ready, which actually help you to quickly start with your e-commerce activities. For example, you need a product carousel, you need a cart, you need a code system, you need something, an order form. So these are some of the small components which are actually React based components. So here we will assume that you know a little bit of JavaScript or React.js to actually start with AEM CIF core components. Then last but not the least, we will talk about the main connector that is actually used for between Magento and AEM to actually get them both connected, and that connector actually works on the top of GraphQL. So now it's like in 2020 these integrations are no more working on REST principles. They have more moved towards GraphQL. So it's more faster. It helps you to grab the data which you really intend for. It doesn't, like just like the rest, it doesn't give you the whole thing back. It's more faster and more responsive. And the final topic that we will cover during our day 3 will be the integration patterns. Depending upon your business, depending upon what kind of e-commerce site you want to work on, or your company wants to start with, or you already have working in, there are different integration patterns to integrate Magento with AEM, and we will talk about 5-6 different integration patterns which you can learn, and by the end of day 3 you will be able to identify what integration pattern is suitable for you. Before moving towards day 4, we will, uh, as I said, I'll be talking about the architecture of the AEM and Magento integration. So if you see in this picture, on the very right hand side, we have the Magento instance. And this Magento instance is actually backed by the GraphQL. So the GraphQL is something that we are going to use to communicate with the Magento. So there are the Magento 2.3 and 2.4 onwards, they support GraphQL APIs to place an order, to check for the codes, to check for the customers, and whatever e-commerce activities we have. And we can also create our own GraphQL endpoints as well. So the first thing first is that Magento will be backed by the GraphQL, and we will be utilizing GraphQL APIs from our AEM. So starting from the left now, if you see, the browser connects with the dispatcher, and the dispatcher connects with the publisher, and then publisher finally connects with the author. Author is an instance of an AEM where we are actually going to wherever content authors are actually going to create the content, or they are going to author the content. Finally, at day 4, we are going to cover some of the most important parts of our e-commerce development from the AEM perspective. We are going to cover AEM Sites Core Components. AEM Sites Core Components are kind of a building blocks for to create any components that for example, if I want to create an AEM commerce component or AEM SIF commerce component, one thing that I need to know first are the AEM Sites Core Components. These are the building blocks or the basics which are already available for us. They are production ready, they are cloud ready, they are versatile, they are configurable, they are SEO friendly, they are themeable, they are localized, and of course they are open sourced. So these are the basic building blocks that we will cover first before moving towards the SIF core components, because commerce components totally rely on AEM Sites Core Components. If we do not know about AEM Sites Core Components, it will be a little bit hard to learn AEM SIF core components. That's why we'll start first with the AEM Sites Core Components. Some of the examples, if you ask me, like what kind of components we are going to cover when we talk about AEM Sites Core Components. So I would say we will see how page component work, how navigation, language navigation, breadcrumb, quick search, title, text, image, button, teaser, download, list, social media sharing, separator, progress bar, PDF viewer, containers, carousels, tabs, forms, form containers, form text, form buttons. These are some of the very basic examples which are part of AEM Sites Core Components. And using these core components, our AEM SIF core components are made. So if you ask me what type of components are we going to cover in AEM SIF core components? Because as the name suggests, commerce integration framework core components. That means these components will be more commerce oriented, more near to your use cases of your commerce, of your headless commerce. So some of the examples that we will be covering or we will be developing during our SIF core components training will be product list, product teaser, product carousels, related products, navigation, breadcrumbs, search results, search bar, shopping cart, featured category list, commerce teaser, sign in, create account, forgot password, account details, reset password. These are some of the core SIF components that we will be working on. And we will not just work on the out of the box part of the core components of core components. We will also see how we can customize them according to our needs and how we can actually style them differently than what they are today as an out of the box styling is. After that, we will be moving towards our day 5, and on the day 5 we are going to learn about some advanced configuration features and some caching principles of AEM storefronts that we are going to build using SIF core components. So the first thing that we're going to learn about will be the multi-template usage. So the multi-template usage is covered again using AEM SIF core components. So these AEM SIF core components provides content authors the ability to create additional categories and product pages. These pages can be enriched with additional marketing content, and they can also be configured to target specific categories and products. So if you want to have your additional marketing content which actually looks different from your site, we will learn how we can achieve that using multi-template usage. The second thing comes is a multi-store setup. In today's e-commerce world, we see businesses are available in, like, they're available worldwide in many countries. You can have your e-commerce store running in United States. At the same times, you might have your store running in Paris. So you might need a store which supports French language. So that's where you need, so if you need to grab the same products on your French site, you need a multi-store setup. So we will see how AEM SIF core components can be used on multiple AEM site structures and the underlying GraphQL client implementation, which can actually help us connect to different Magento stores or store views over the same Magento stores or store views. This allows projects to implement complex multi-store or multi-site setups. So we will be learning this as a part of day 5 of our training. The third thing we will be working on will be our shopping cart setup. This will be a very most interesting part for me, at least. It's a most interesting part, setting up a shopping cart. So the order will be placed on AEM, and you will see how your orders reflects on your Magento site. So a true practice of a headless commerce. So all the e-commerce activities will be done from AEM, but using GraphQL, those all e-commerce activities will reflect on your Magento store without even without even once it is integrated, without even having a thorough Magento knowledge, you will be able to place an orders and control and author a lot of stuff from the AEM only. You do not really need to go quite deep inside the Magento to see how the order placing works or how the cart is established between Magento and the AEM. Then we will be moving towards configuring our URLs for SEO. Luckily, AEM SIF core components provides advanced configurations to customize the URLs for your products and category pages. Many implementations will customize these URLs for search engine optimization purposes, and you can actually these like your like when you work with the SIF core components, you actually have this SEO capability out of the box. There will be with very less effort, you can actually get your product and category URLs search engine optimized ready. In the last, we will be discussing about some of the caching options to make our request. So since, as I told you, that GraphQL will be used for the communication between our AEM and Magento. So the caching is something which is very important. And it's a little bit advanced topic, but this is one of the mandatory topics as well. Because once you set up your store, you need to have a caching in place to get your request to move faster from AEM to GraphQL. So fortunately, again, the AEM SIF core components already have built-in support for caching GraphQL resources for individual components. And this feature can be used to reduce the number of GraphQL backend calls by a large factor. Um, let's say an effective caching can be actually easily achieved using SIF core components. And you will be see a drastic change, a drastic change in the speed. You'll be increasing your speed of your flow of GraphQL data from your AEM to your Magento instances. That will be our last topic that we are going to cover, but that will not just be it. There are much more to cover in our AEM and in our Magento journey. We will be welcome to taking any additional topics, any additional questions that your team really wants to learn on. We can set that up. You can contact us through our email addresses, and we will be happy to answer you what what are your more customized requests in terms of these topics. If you have a different case study, if you have a different user stories that you want, or you have a different kind of an e-commerce setup, this integration supports almost all of our modern e-commerce setups. So feel free to contact us in terms of what your e-commerce practices are, how you really want to get those things to work using this training, that where we are going to showcase our e-commerce integration with our AEM. So I'll be just giving this control back to my partner Faisal, and he'll be giving you more insights on Magento side and how we are going to use Magento to work efficiently with our this training journey. Thank
Yeah,
you.
sure. Thank you, Atif. That was quite enlightening, and thank you for giving a complete overview and brief of the 5-day plan on the AEM side. So I'd like to give you a quick overview of what are we going to do on the Magento side. So what we are going to basically do is um, there will be covering one unit of Magento and AEM each every day, led by instructors live with hands-on training of 4 hours, as I mentioned earlier. So there will be one unit of AEM and one unit of Magento. Will be going in parallel learning about both of them. And on the day one of Magento, so let's see what topics we'll be covering on the day one. We'll revisit the Magento architecture first, which is a module-based architecture, directory structure, and related stuff. As you might be aware, the modules and themes in Magento 2 are used as elements of customization. So where modules give different features and properties to a site, the themes obviously give effect and appearance. So both modules and themes have their own life cycle, which allows you to install, disable and maybe delete the elements. So like a standard top-notch modular approach, the Magento modularity approach makes the code clearer. It allows you to simplify the development process and the process of identifying the correcting defects, maybe. So Magento's module-based architecture, directory structure, the plugins and event observers, as well as obviously on day one, we'll be installing the Magento 2 community instance and taking you through it live. Moving on to day two, keeping in line with the day two of AEM, we'll be learning a bit about the request flow processing in Magento. Although it's not directly related to the headless commerce, but we believe you'll be building a whole live e-commerce environment, a headless e-commerce environment. And this could be of help later on when managing the request flow in Magento. So we should actually dive a little deeper in it. So we'll look into the request flow in Magento, different types of modes, the custom module creation from scratch. We'll create one custom module from scratch. We'll actually see the Magento flow, how it works in the code base step by step. So how controls are routed and how it calls the method. We'll discuss again the types of modes. We'll learn how to create one custom module, including front-end UI and back-end admin code operations. We'll get to know about controllers, block, model, view, maybe templates, and helpers, etc., etc. So you can understand the stuff related to that. I just wanted to put this high-level overview of the request flow processing in Magento, which we'll actually discuss deeper on the day of training, as how the controller compiles and process everything and throw it back to the application layer. to display on the front end. Jumping on to day 3, we'll be going over the introduction to Magento front end and admin overview. We will look into the Magento UI components, the custom theme creation and installation, the order management and catalog management. So under the UI components, we'll look on admin and front end UI component features and examples. We'll be looking over 2 to 3 examples. On the theme creation side, we'll learn how to create new custom theme and how to install it into the Magento instance that we have already built. The order management and catalog management side, we'll look into all kind of products that we have, the simple product, configurable product. We'll look into the Magento related features to order management and catalog management, including the custom attributes. So you will look how the custom attributes are created, how we can edit them. We'll look at them deep down at the code level as well, and obviously the catalog configuration. So this will be this is what we'll be covering in day 3, and by day 3, as Adif also explained, we would I'm sorry, we would actually start to dive a little more deeper into the SIF integration from the AEM side. So by this time, you would have actually learned a lot about the configuration of the catalog management, themes, Magento store, and we'll be actually ready to actually go ahead and configure the SIF framework. On the day 4 of the Magento, again, this is a very important component. Day 4 is a very important day in the Magento's training 5-day workshop. So we'll be going through the overview of REST API. We'll take a closer look at the current state of Magento's GraphQL, queries and mutations as well. So in the REST API, we'll see the uses and how to access and give some examples accordingly. On the current state of GraphQL side, let's say the difference of REST and GraphQL, the specific features of GraphQL, and know how it's used in AEM, obviously from the other side. On the GraphQL query side, we will see how to call and see some basic examples. We will also dive a little more deeper into the uses of mutation and query using certain examples and the use cases. Maybe we'll go through a case study of one of our recent customer that we did this work for. So day 4 would be full of GraphQL and API and examples they go through it. Just wanted to put an overall Magento's API's overview and GraphQL introduction diagram here, as how the support REST, how does it support REST and SOAP API calls, just to show it briefly, and support GraphQL and new API features, the single endpoint query type and all, but we'll certainly go ahead and study it in detail on the day of training. Finally, on the day 5th, we would have actually reached a point where we would be configuring the shopping cart component, and we would have actually integrated this SIF almost completely into the Magento, but we'll be actually learn to customize the SIF core components. We'll create multiple stores, let's say in Magento, to test the localization. We'll give you a brief overview of how the localization works on the multi-stores and Magento. We'll test the order workflow, the AEM Magento module connectivity test, as we call it. So talking a little more briefly about customizing SIF core components, we'll learn how to connect Magento and AEM using SIF core components, along with the help of our AEM subject matter expert. We'll learn how to set up multiple stores again and assign different languages, and complete the setup of Magento instance at that point. And again, in the end, we'll go ahead and test the overall workflow to ensure that our overall headless e-commerce environment is working as we intend this to be. So this was a quick brief on the 5 days Magento agenda. on what we'll be doing. Atif has earlier gave for 5 days of AEM. Combine this, you will be taking away a lot. So a lot of times people ask, okay, why should we be doing this, and what will be the key takeaways of it? Uh, there are a lot actually. So you will be actually having an ability to set up complete Magento AEM instance and being able to in real time fetch the product data from Magento while using AEM features. A lot of companies these days are not looking for specific modules or functionalities, rather they are looking for a complete digital experience, and management is interested in bothering the IT people as less as they can, and would want to give the control in the hands of the business users to actually do some basic, what we call now basic tasks, such as maybe creating the experience fragments, or uh, the pages or the templates, or moving the banner here and there and text here and there. So obviously after once you learn this, you will be able to provide a value to your company where AEM can actually business users can actually perform these simple tasks through AEM. So AEM and Magento, as we all know, are industry leading solutions. They are in their own entirety and in their own independence, they are huge solutions, making the best of both worlds, both the content management system and the e-commerce engine. But obviously once you combine it together, and since after acquiring of Magento by Adobe is constantly working to make Magento Adobe solutions friendly. The integration is tightly bundled with all the rest of the Adobe applications. So hence you'll be able to configure the SIF components with these two amazing applications and achieve a great headless e-commerce environment. You'll be having an ability to handle the possible issues in component configuration. So you'll find a lot of stuff on the internet where you'll be able to go ahead and study. But the thing that we have experienced, which actually requires an experience and which we want to put in your hands, is actually the core of it, which is the component configuration, which is a trickier part, and we often face difficulties in it. Again, this is a great credentials upgrade, as every 1 in 3 Fortune 500 companies evaluating AEM as their web content system. AEM is having an ever increasing rising demand in the market, and obviously once you actually start your journey, which is the basic level of course, we'll be offering the advanced level of courses in future as well. But right now, this will give you enough to actually stand alone, go ahead and set up your AEM store. So with this, I would like to conclude my presentation and move on to any question and answers that we might have in the chat box. So we'll go ahead, and if you have put in the questions, let me quickly check and see. Just a minute. Okay, so there's an interesting question here from the listeners. So what is the pricing of the course? Well, we are running a promo until the mid of January for 50% off. The pricing actually varies from the group and the company profile, the timing. So we have actually not only specially curated this course in terms of content, we are also very flexible on pricing. So you can send us an email, you can reach out to us at info@royalcyber.com. Just mention how many people are looking to have this training, a bit of your company profile, your preferred timing and dates, and based on that, we'll see the availability of our slots and trainers, and we'll accommodate you. I will give you the best market competitive pricing that you won't get probably from anywhere else. And obviously at the end of the training, we'll be providing a certification to you, which will add to your credentials. And yeah, so there was another question regarding the certification. Yes, we'll be providing you a certification at the end of the training. Let me quickly go through if there are any other questions. Okay. All right. I think we don't have any questions right now, but if you feel a need of anything in terms, if any other question pops up in your mind later on as well, uh, we are very happy to, we would be very happy to actually go ahead and answer it. So you can simply email to us at info@royalcyber.com, and we'll see you next time. Thank you and have a great day.